There's lots of us that have heard this thing, Agile, and I'm sure quite a few of you in the audience have already begun your Agile journey. I was talking to some people at lunchtime that are yet to begin their Agile journey, and I just said to them, good luck. So I think the important thing is to understand what do we mean by this term Agile, what's Agile project management, and you've heard the big theme of today is really business agility as well. So I'll try and uncover some of those things. Most importantly, what do we really mean by Agile? Because how many of you have heard Agile being used as an excuse? How many of you have thought, you get this from senior management as well. Or we'd go the other way, we'd tell senior management, so don't worry, it's okay, we're running this project in an Agile way. And everyone goes, okay then, that must be all right that we've gone completely over budget. That must be fine that we're taking 3, 6, 9 months longer than we originally anticipated. Because we're running Agile. Everyone's cracking up laughing because you've all heard it, haven't you? You've all heard the fact that we're just using this thing called Agile as just an excuse to get things done whenever we want to get done, to make changes whenever we want to make changes, because it's Agile. What nonsense. In fact, in the recent Gartner report that I read a few weeks ago, they were saying that some Agile projects are actually going 100% over time, over the original estimate for time. 200% over the original estimate for costs. Wow. Bit of a scary figure. However, there is some good news, and I'll take from my dear colleague Steve here. The good news is we have got some brilliant projects being done really well using those Agile techniques. And I know a few of our customers that are in the audience today that you've got pockets of what I'd say pockets of excellence, where you've got some people really getting hold of this stuff and running it really well. But you've also got projects that are probably not doing it quite so well, and it's kind of a bit of a mix between waterfall and Agile, and I don't really know what we're doing. So it's quite interesting what we see out there. And I'm going to also bring you back to this beautifully prepared trends report. Have a look on page 5. It's written by our founder and director, Pete, who's sitting on this table here. So if anyone doesn't met Pete, by the way, he's this guy here. Come and talk to him. What he's written is the second paragraph down. I think it's really important. I feel like I'm on a training course now. Please get your highlight pens out and highlight this. It says, change has always been constant, but the pace of change has become dramatically faster with more complexity. Okay, we've heard that from the guys previously, from Malcolm and John, etc. Today, organisations are faced with the challenge of competitive and changing operating environments driven by increasing costs, business disruptors, data systems, regulatory adjustments, and of course, market opportunity. What we do is we think, okay, there's lots of stuff going on here. There's lots of stuff that we're thinking, if we need to be able to adapt and be able to do things better and faster and cheaper and get to our goals quicker, what happens is our C-level guys, CIO, CEO, C whatever, find themselves going to a conference where everyone's talking about Agile, or they read an article in a magazine which has got everything to do with going Agile. And they come back to the organisation and they go, well, hey, what we're going to do tomorrow is we're going to change everything, and everything from now on is going to be Agile. Has anyone heard that before? Yeah, so I've got quite a few nods in the room. So what we do is we think, well, everything we've done so far in traditional project management to get everything done, to make sure that we increase our maturity levels over a period of time, let's just throw that out the window. Let's forget all that. Let's now have this new thing called Agile. So I'm going to cover with you a few things. First of all, what do we mean by Agile project management against business agility? This business agility thing is, as Ray mentioned earlier, the new kind of buzzword. What do we really mean by that? Because we've got best practice out there, we've got standards out there, we've got books out there. We've got PMBOK guides, we've got Prince 2. Best practice exists, but now it's really moving on and saying, okay, we should adapt best practice, but now we need to move beyond that and adopt it. I'm also going to talk about complexity. This word complexity is also bandied about a bit. What do we really mean by complexity? The more complex our project, the chances are the more we need to be agile, the more agility we need. And finally, where do you sit in the PMO or as project managers? Where do we fit in? How are we going to run our projects and programs now that we need more agility around it? You see, some of you might relate to this. In our world, everything begins with a P. Have you noticed that? We call it the big P in PM Partners. Well, we start with a P. So we've got projects and portfolios and programs, processes, principles, products. Now what happens all of a sudden is someone comes along and then we think about all these terms. Now we've got to learn all this. People come up with all these things and we go, time box? What the hell's a time box? Kanban board? What the hell's a Kanban board? Sprints? What's a sprint? What's a scrum? What's XP? Some of these things we've never heard of before. But we're expected for some reason to know all this because we're running Agile. So, guys, what we've got to think about is, for us, what is going to drive the next level of value within our PMO? We need to understand what these words are. We also need to understand that at high level, our senior managers don't really need to know what these terms are, but they need to have some idea of how it fits in. So, as you've already seen, today's, and you've heard from our previous speaker, today's business environments are challenging. What do we need to do? Just kind of, when we talk about Agile, we talk about three different things. Adaptability. How can we adapt to the changing market environments? How's our projects and programs and portfolios going to be able to adapt? We also need to think about our flexibility. Flexibility with the processes that we've got. We've got the processes. They've been in place for years. Now we need to put some flexibility on those processes. How are we going to manage that so that we can come more agile? Hence, we need to make decisions faster. Does that mean that everything we've put in place for our traditional waterfall project management goes out the window? No. What it means is we've got to be able to flex those processes and procedures and techniques that we're used to dealing with. So when we talk about things like business agility, if I was to ask you all now to write down your definition of business agility, you'd probably all give me a different answer. And in fact, we did try this. And these are the kind of things that we came up with. That agility is things like a mindset. It's about behaviours. I'll let you read through the slide. Customer collaboration. Does that mean that we're going to use Agile because we need to collaborate with the customer? Does it, hell? Because traditional project management also means that you have to collaborate with the customer. It doesn't mean to say that because we're now running a daily stand-up, we're now running Agile all of a sudden. It's just one of the techniques that we can use, which allows us to give that agility. When I think about business agility, I just simply think, well, it's about a way of working. It's a way of working, which some of us are just not used to. Hence, what you've heard about already is actually the transition to an Agile way of working can be a bit of a cultural change. Collaboration, empowerment. Some of us are not used to that. Have a think about this one. Agile is not a binary condition. Binary. So you don't just turn it on and off. It's not necessarily, and this is our opinion, this is not necessarily a silver bullet, by the way. It's not necessarily about saying this project's Agile, this project isn't. It's not necessarily about saying this project has to be run in a waterfall way and not Agile. consider that. Consider that Agile is really more about how much, or is it about how little you're going to use some of those concepts and some of those behaviours? It's not about saying some projects are Agile, some are not. Interesting concept? I've got everyone's attention. This is great. Don't always get that in the classroom. So what we want to do then is make sure that all these things we talk about in an Agile world can be applied to any project. In fact, they can be applied to any of the programs within your portfolio. But what do we need is to make sure that us guys working in the PMOs and the PMO arena are familiar with what we're going to be able to do. An Agile, to embark on the Agile journey, you need to start thinking about complexity. And this word complexity is kind of banded about, like I said earlier. Typically, we rate projects on the basis of the size, on how risky it is, how complex it is. What do? We just go, okay, it's complex, tick. Or we rate it 5 out of 5, but how do we know how complex it really is? There's a model that's been produced. It's called the, surprisingly enough, it's called the Cynefin model. Yeah, it's a Welsh term. I'm not going to go into this in too much. It can be a bit confusing. I'll try and simplify it. Simplify it really because what we're talking about is 5 different domains of the Cynefin model. And what we're saying is basically any of your projects could fit into one of these domains. Typically, projects that are in the obvious domains are projects that we've been doing over and over and over again, and we're very clear about what the outcomes are going to be. They could be complicated, they could be complex, or from what we see in most of the projects we look at, potentially chaotic. But chaotic is not necessarily a bad place to be. It's understanding that a project could be chaotic. Typically, we don't know, especially the projects that we don't know what the outcomes are going to be. We don't necessarily know what the customer really wants. We're still learning what the customer wants, but we want to get started. Let's break this down a bit further. You can obviously see that, before I do that, if going from obvious to chaotic, you're falling off the edge of a cliff. Okay, so we don't want to be doing that. But the transition between complicated and complex can be quite simple. Let's take these two, complicated and complex. Guys, this is, if you're interested, and some people I can see will love this stuff, feel free to write some stuff down. If we know that doing X gives us a Y result, and we've been doing it over a period of time, typically that will fit in the complicated domain. The example I gave someone the other day was a bit like, imagine you're a board game manufacturer, and you've been developing board games for a number of years. You come up with a new idea, and you want to develop a new board game. Well, you've been doing board games for years and years and years. This one's new and it's exciting, it's different. Therefore, really, it's just complicated. Because complication, it's about, as we say here, it's knowing that there's some unknowns. You know there's some unknowns, it's quite risky. There's a known cause and effect. But you still don't know what it fully is. So the level of risk is kind of medium to high. So we need to rely on experts to help us with that. Consider complex. Complex conditions really exist where you've got an X, but you're really unsure what the Y is because you haven't done this before. It is completely brand new. Typically, let's say a toy manufacturer. You've been designing toys and building toys for a long time. But this time you're going to build a new toy, it's a new board game. But it's unusual, it's different. Therefore, it's going to be far more complex. Complexity is about you understand where you are now. It's irrelevant where you've been, and it's irrelevant where you're going. It's do you understand where you are now, and therefore forecasting that is far more risky. Okay. It's the unknown unknowns. So now we have things like known knowns, known unknowns, unknown knowns, and unknown unknowns. Got that? What's this really mean? It really means that you need to be able to ensure that if you're in the complex zone, that you're happy for the fail fast approach. You don't mind failing. And that culture exists within the business where actually failure is seen as a good thing. which suits nicely into the Agile world because, as we probably know, the Agile concept is actually fail fast. That's what we're looking for. Okay, so that's just one model that you might want to consider using, the Cynefin model, in order to assess where your project fits in. Obvious, complicated, complex, or is it actually going to be chaotic? Watch out for the disorder, which kind of mix in the middle. And then moving on for that, we're really saying, well, how agile can we be on this project? I said earlier that agile is not necessarily a binary condition. It's about how much or how little that you want to input some of those processes and procedures. Going agile really means understanding what the threats are to successful delivery, but also understanding actually there's going to be some benefits. And the benefits are going to come in quick, and they're going to come in fast, and we've got to be ready for them. And one of the themes I've heard this morning is really all about benefit management, something we need to think about. So one thing to think about is how suitable is your project? How suitable is your project for Agile? And there's a number of, I call them sliders, and you heard this morning from John or Malcolm that's talking about time, cost, quality, scope, risk and benefits. Typically traditional project management, we kind of slide them back and forth. Where's our focus? In Agile, we kind of think it a slightly different way. We need to understand the 6 different levers that we use in Agile project management to work out how suitable or not suitable your project might be for Agile. So just consider this. Flexibility in what's delivered. Is your customer, is your sponsors, your steering committee, the senior management team, are they happy that, guess what, not everything is going to get delivered? What do we call that? The Pareto rule. We're understanding that actually 80% is good enough. And if you relate it back to some of the studies, you'll know that 20% of the things that were delivered probably takes 80% of the time and 80% of the cost. So why do we deliver them in the first place? Acceptance that not getting everything that we want could be a good thing. It means we're not gold plating. It means we're not spending 3, 6, 9 months writing out all the detailed business requirements. So what you've got to think about is if you're moving on to a 5, if you're deciding that you're a number 5 in terms of Agile, in terms of flexibility in what's delivered, then fantastic, you've got more chance. But I'm going to go through 6 of these, so keep with me. What we're not saying is just an average out of these 6. Because you might find that you're actually down at level 1 on all 6 and you go, sod it, I can't run Agile. That's not strictly true. Because what we're really saying is, here's an element of risk, and you need to look at this element and see if it can be improved. If you're at number 6, then you've got a greater chance of success. It doesn't mean to say that if all 6 are on number 5 that you're definitely going to run Agile. You just need to think about that. Level of collaboration. If we're down at the low level, it means we're not talking to each other. If we're down at low level, it means we've got people all over the building trying to work on one project. Now, I know that I think some of the banks in the room today have got this as one of their core values. And as one team culture, we need that within our Agile environment as well. Because here we're talking about the project managers and the BAs, the PMO, the developers and the testers, all working together as one team. And that's a culture shift. Because we've got different behaviours, we've got different levels of understanding. We've got different levels of period of time that they've been with the company. Therefore, what comes into effect is actually the level of emotional intelligence. And if we've got people that are not willing to collaborate, then we've got a problem. We've got a no-blame culture. How many of us in the room just constantly CC everyone else in the organisation just to cover their asses, yeah? Or how many times, let's turn that around. How many emails do you get where you're just CC'd in because someone wants to cover their ass with you? The CC culture can't exist in an Agile environment because CC is not my fault, CC'd them. Yeah? One thing you want to take away from this is go back to your organisation and tell everyone that CCs you in, say, did I really need to know that? Halve your emails overnight. What else? We're also willing, if we're collaborating, to understand that mistakes are kind of okay. They're kind of like, I've already made a mistake this morning. I walked past that speaker with a microphone and it went whoop in everyone's ear. That's okay, we didn't care. We moved on. Mistakes are fine. Communication's the next one. Ease of communication. That's always not that easy. Because what we're used to in a waterfall world is we're used to project managers, and I'm sure there's people that have been project managers in their past, or even now, who will sit behind a computer screen and develop a plan. And they'll take 2, 3, 4 weeks or months to come up with a plan. And they won't have spoke to anybody. They're just trying to do it themselves. Not only that, but when someone wants to see the plan, they go, it's kind of on my laptop. No one can see it. Thank you very much. If we want to communicate, actually what we're looking for is to see the plans on the walls. We want to see arrows, post-it notes, schedules on the wall. Clear line of sight. Everyone can see what's going on. I don't know where I was the other day. They said, we can't put anything on the walls. Okay, we're a paperless office. Yeah? Change it. So everything has to be on a laptop. If it's going to stay on the laptop, how are you going to show it to everybody? Okay, I want to walk into a room and you've got the plan all over the walls. I want to see post-it notes. I want to see greens. I want to see schedules. I want to see it on the wall. That shows me that communication is happening effectively. I want to be co-located. I want my team to be co-located. If you're not co-located, we've got a potential problem. How are we going to collaborate when you're working with teams in Manila? When you're working with teams in India? When you're working with teams in Melbourne? Communication's important. What we're really looking here is, again, it's about face-to-face interaction. It's not about reports. It's not about emails. I don't want to see people on Communicator or Link or whatever those instant messages things are on your screens. Stop with this email, because what email's all about is actually, it's in writing, so cover me arse. That doesn't work in an agile way. So we're looking for effective communication. What else? Ability to work iteratively and deliver incrementally. What's this all about? Be creative. Be creative. It's not necessarily about following the plan. It's understanding we're not necessarily going to be right first time. It's understanding we're going to start delivering value quite early. And for some organisations, quick and often releases is a problem for them, because we're going, oh no, we can't do that because we've got all this in place that's been designed over the last 20 years. We only release things once every 6 months. Sorry, but I need to release it next week. Sorry, can't do that. If your business is not set up for that, then you need to think about how you're going to get around that, because incremental delivery is about quick releases. I'm forgetting my arrows, but I do love them still. What about advantageous environmental conditions? What we're talking about here is, again, supportive, but this is not just supportive within the team now. This is getting support from the management team. It's understanding that we want that buy-in from senior management. Buy into this new way of working, buy into Agile, buy into the agility. If the customer's not there on a regular basis, if the sponsor doesn't really know what's happening, then you've got a problem. If you've got no representation from the business perspective, we've got a problem. We need to be set up for this. We need the team to be stable. We can't start swapping people in and out. We need a stable team that are trained, that understand what they're doing. And the last one, which is probably the most important, is my cards are going to go over. Acceptance of this agile world. It's quite interesting. I don't think they're in the room. I went to an organisation a few weeks ago just to give an overview of, there's actually an overview of Prince 2 to a senior management team. No, it wasn't a senior management team. It was a group of people working as project managers and as senior managers, a whole group, whole mix of people. Talked about Prince 2 project management, and they're all sitting there, yep, get it, yep, seems okay. The next day we did the same thing, but we talked about Agile project management. In fact, we talked specifically about Scrum. But these guys that have been, and girls for that matter, that have been running projects for years and years and years, they were going, this can never work. But the Generation Y, the 20-year-olds, were going, this is what we're after. So how do we get these people to start working together? Because I can tell you, the angst in the room, and I was facilitating that, was horrendous. I don't think I've ever been into an environment where people were shouting at each other. The younger generation, the older generation, just... It needed fisticuffs in the room, you know. It was pretty powerful stuff. And I was like, oh, I think I'll just shut the door and go. So it's something else to think about. How are we going to make sure that if we work in this new exciting way of working, that everyone's got the buy-in to it? So acceptance of this Agile philosophy is really important. Where do we fit in? Well, these just bring me to a couple of models. Because actually Agile's been proven it works at lower level. It's been proven it works at software development level and product development level. It works really well. But what we want to do, we want to govern and control it. So at project management level, it's really our traditional way of thinking. And at senior management level, at direction level, they want to know that whatever we're doing and whatever we're spending their money on is going to give them some benefits. So we kind of got a sandwich effect here. We've got to start thinking, from an Agile perspective, the thinking's got to go from low level to high level, and our traditional way of thinking is got to go from high down to low. We've got a blended way of working. And it can work. It's not easy, but it can work. And then you've got to start thinking about the next level of complexity when you start talking about program management, because now we're thinking we've got a number of projects that are using Agile, a number of projects that's using certain elements of Agile, and we've got a number of projects that have to run in a waterfall approach. So for a program manager, they need to understand all this. And remember what we're talking about when we talk about programs, it's about outcomes and benefits. How are we going to make sure they're still going to come through? Then we've got to think about a bit wider. So senior management team, we've got to be thinking about a portfolio level. And then where do we fit in? We need to be all over this. Because we can really help. Because what we need to be able to do is provide not constraints, not stopping things, not saying you can't do this. It's providing advice and guidance, providing the tools and techniques to enable the blended way of working to work. It's about support. It's not about putting red tape in the face. It's about support for this. We've also got to remember that we've kind of got this two-speed project management thing going on. In fact, go one step further, it's even like a three-speed project management. We've got Agile stuff that's being done fast. We've got traditional stuff that we need to think about more and do some more design up front. And then we've got this blended. We've got a three-speed approach. As PMO guys, we need to be all over this. Help it, don't constrain it. And how does it fit into a traditional way? How are we going to get this Agile way of working, the product development way of working, into a traditional, so that we've got the controls and the governance in place? Some of you might recognize this as kind of a Prince 2 framework. So across the top, you've got the different stages that we talk about. We've got the direction in terms of the stage boundaries and making sure we've got decision points as we go through by breaking the project up. Project management level is about controlling the stage and making sure it stays within all the agreed boundaries. That's what the project manager needs to do. But then what's the project manager do? They don't do the work, they manage the work, they delegate the work to a team manager or team member. The team manager is down at the delivery. I think we've got MP on there for managing the product delivery. And this is where everything is done. And if we're running in an Agile way, that's where the Agile work's going to get done. So let's just take this part on its own and just extract this out. Another brilliant slide. And this is what now happens at the lower level. We've got the management stage, but within that management stage, within that major decision point, we are running releases. We're running sprints. One or more sprints with a deployment will make up a release. One or more releases can make up a stage. You've still got the governance, because you can still use reporting. We can have reviews and retrospectives during the sprints. We can use that as reporting. Again, what type of reporting? We're not talking about 20 pages of reporting here. It's face-to-face reporting. It's measuring progress by delivered product. So we've got the work package coming down. Here's your set of instructions. Get on with it. By the way you're going to run this is an agile way. You're happy with that? We've only got 2 requirements. Can you sort the rest out using incremental delivery and building upon those foundations we had? So think about Agile as it's a bit of a journey. It's not necessarily a means to an end. So finishing off, think about where you are today. If you're about to embark on the Agile journey, just think about what you're trying to achieve. What's the goal you're trying to achieve? Just remember that some big organisations have been on this journey. They've transitioned totally to Agile. It didn't work, and they've come all the way back again. Okay? I think Andre has given me a great statistic earlier that from large organisations, typically 20 to 30% of their portfolios are run in an Agile way. Okay? Think about that. Hence, to kind of finish off, it's a means to an end. It's an enabler for the journey for the organisational goal. And my last slide to talk about is really the way of reporting. Traditional reporting for Agile projects is not necessarily based upon hitting milestones. What we need to understand, especially in the PMO, is the way of working in an Agile way actually working? And there's 5 key indicators here. And this is a great thing to use. Typically a traffic light system, so you can see the one in red, which is rich communication. So plans are not on walls. I can't see where we are. We're still watermelon reporting. Have you heard of watermelon reporting? Yeah, some of you have, yeah? We tend to report, that's what Malcolm was talking about earlier. Everyone's reporting green, 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 green. But if you dive a little bit deeper in a watermelon, what do you find? Yeah, it's red, okay? So watch that. In this instance, what we're saying is we're not seeing the plans. So it's a great little thing to use in conjunction with anything else that you need to use as well. I'm not making this all up, by the way. This is it's actually I'll show you in a minute, it's actually best practice, and I'll show you the book. With the Agile PMO model, I'm going to get you just to turn to, I think one of the questions on the Kanban board outside is, what does the Agile PMO look like? This is it. This is our version. Page 32. So you can open up on page 32. This is a very powerful slide, a very powerful graphic. So where are we in our PMO? So page 32. Steve talked earlier about defensive, measured and aligned. If you're running Agile PMO, what does that mean? Well, if you're in defensive, what it really means is that you're just starting to try this. You just picked 1 or 2 projects and you're going to try and run in an Agile way. Trial work packages. The business adoption in Agile is probably just a little bit patchy, typically driven out of IT. We want to move, if we can, to predictability level. Here, Agile becomes a way of working. In this instance, again, don't try and do this on your own. If you're running Agile, you need coaches. You need people that have been there and done it and got the T-shirt. Bring these people in. I've got one standing at the back over the top right there. Say hello, Rob. Bring these guys in because they have the expertise. And as in a measured, we've got guidelines, optimizing resources, and we can see where we are when it comes to Agile delivery. What we'd love to be able to do is get in a position where we have that business agility, where we are aligned with the business. That's our goal. So use this model. It's very good, very powerful. So like I said, I didn't just make this up. Some of the diagrams and graphics I took are actually out of this book. Who would have thought just 1 year ago Prince 2 was going Agile? Because traditionally we go, oh, is it Prince 2 or is it Agile? Okay, from what I've just shown you, it's not about one or the other. It's not binary.